So Phil, we've sat in many videos where we're giving advice for customers, but we don't usually dig that deep into our personal stories in those. So maybe we'll take a bit longer here and actually dig in and see what we can find.
Oh,
Your background.
okay.
So maybe, I'll give you a low bowler to start with. Let's just hear about your background before Bespoke and how you ended up where you are today, I guess, in digital.
Well, I'm pre-digital. I started off, there's always been a creative thread to, the different jobs that I've done. And that began with my initial role as a graphic designer and illustrator as well. But I wasn't very good at it. Not good enough. And there were some really talented people there. But I showed an aptitude more for managing the processes and the people early days. So I sort of took that route within that greeting card manufacturing business. And I really enjoyed it. I was there many years.
Was that, just out of interest, was that manual artwork or was it this computer?
No, this was, well, at the time it was ink, scalpels, gouache paints. I'm showing my age a little bit.
I was just fully enough reading an article about all this yesterday. Yeah, some of the technical gear is really revered now. Some design classics in the old
rotring pens.
That's exactly what I was reading about.
Yeah, they're all, I've still got a couple somewhere in a cupboard, gunked up with ink.
Yeah.
But no, they were good times. But the threads and skills that you learn still translated through to digital.
Yeah, a bit like, because I worked in a newspaper, actually, the same thing. A lot of principles, the same.
Yeah.
But yeah, just the thing I love with digital is more flexible. And, you're not set in stone once it's done. That's
right. I remember those early days where digital was becoming a thing and the organisation that I worked for was sort of, wrestling with that challenge.
Yeah.
And the IT guys were doing it technically very well, but it wasn't right for customers and clients. So I remember at the time I had quite a few views on what we should and shouldn't be doing. So I was sort of handed the job, really. Right. It was almost like, well, if you can do it better, why don't you ever go at it? Yeah. So that's how it began. That's how the digital journey began.
Yeah. And when was the first point where you were in a fully digital role then, or you were in charge of?
We'd realised we needed to make the switch from a business commercial point of view. I'm not sure of the exact year, but we knew that was needed. And there was quite a lot of focus and investment in making what does success look like? What are the components of the team? What tools do we need? What resources do we need? And that was where the penny dropped, that it was something exciting to get after, but it was something we had to get right.
And that was the stationery company?
Yeah, greeting card manufacturer and stationery, that's right.
Yeah.
There was the focus on the wrong things at the time, but I suppose the learning from it was nobody had the answers at the time and we had to try things. And we made a few mistakes, there was, if you remember the days of SEO, how do we do this well?
Yeah.
Well, I remember the company that owned us thought it was a good idea to have thousands of backlinks.
Yes.
Churned, made unethically, essentially. And we realised quickly that was a mistake. But I really enjoyed working out the sort of the components that made, ultimately, us very successful in digital as a business.
I'm going to say more recently, but it's still 10 years ago. I remember seeing you picking up an award for your team in a different role, a digital team.
Yes,
is that right?
That's right. Yeah. I mean, time moved on. I moved to a different business. It was in the hygiene industry and a very big digital presence. We were really successful and we grew really fast. And we were innovating as well. And we got, it's a very sort of high profile Northwest Business Award, the Beavers. And the team and I got an award for Best Digital Innovation at the Beavers.
Great.
2016-ish.
Something like that. Yeah. And so, but then from there, you've obviously, I think it's a key thing we mentioned in our other videos, is you've obviously transitioned from in-house, being the leader of the in-house operation, to being on the other side, the leader of the agency operation. We've spoke about this in other videos, so we don't need to go through all but what's the sort of headline difference there? Or maybe what's the combined learning of, seeing it from both sides? It's quite a rare position, really.
I mean, it was such a benefit, really, because a lot of the challenges I had when I was managing these in-house teams was trying to get the right balance of skills and resources. So who should I be employing? Who should be in that team? And where do we need expertise externally? I learned quickly you need a blend of both. You have to have a blend of both. So I made a few mistakes, but ultimately I felt I got that balance right. So that was the big learning, really understanding that you need, the best of both to have a, a fully optimized team.
And sorry, the best of both is expertise and
in-house expertise,
in-house.
the right people in the right roles, and the right support from the right agency.
Right.
But also understanding you have to choose carefully. You have to be well matched with the agency.
Yeah.
And learning that in-house made it easier coming to Bespoke and then understanding our clients better, because I've been in their position for many years in 2 or 3 different businesses.
And a feature of your years here is like a consistency and stability in staff and client accounts as well. Actually, maybe it's a feature of us generally, actually, for a good while. You oversee things day to day, so there's obviously something that you brought to PHS, the previous company, and that you bring here as well. It just seems to...
Yeah, it's something that I've stood by, and it's trying to create harmony. And within the team, but it's not just within the team. If you can create that harmony, if you can be commercial, and focused on success in your roles or with your clients, there has to be that underlying harmony in the team. That goes for the client relationships as well. So that's a thread that I like to feel is running through things.
What's the thing that makes a day where you just feel like, I'm in the element today? This is, you go on fulfilled. And then what's the thing that's happening when it's the stressful days as well, isn't there?
Commercially we want to succeed, don't we? That's a given. So it's satisfying to, win new clients. It's satisfying when the commercial side is fulfilled.
Yeah.
But I guess a fulfilling day is a happy team and happy clients, really. Where everything's just ticking over.
Yeah.
Just as it should be. There's a term we use, it's sort of low noise, everything's just ticking along fine and smoothly.
We do have that, don't we? I think it's quite satisfying when there's a day where it's nothing extraordinary's happened, but it's just been just right. Like you say, everybody is content, and there's just a nice atmosphere. There's lots of different people sort of intermingling, and I think everybody goes home with a warm feeling on those.
There's a quiet buzz, there's good conversations going on, it's collaborative.
Yeah.
But there's not too much drama.
Yeah. Dare I ask about the stress and where the stress is? And I feel like we don't have crazy stress generally.
No, I'd say
there must
not.
be
No.
stressy days.
Well, I guess, yeah. If what would a stressy day be? If you feel you've done everything properly and correctly, and you sort of, the relationship with the client is, everything's going as it should be, but for some reason they're not happy. You want to resolve it for them, and 9 times out of 10 we do.
Yeah.
But just occasionally, relationships do run the course, and occasionally, you have to part your ways. I think I'm proud to say, though, I think our retention rates is very high, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I suppose you do a lot to preempt that, such that it doesn't happen in the first place. It's quite rare, isn't it? But still. It's
quite rare, but sometimes occasionally you just get to a point with the client where you're just in different places, or you become ill-matched.
Yeah.
Or it's run its course.
Yeah.
I suppose there's a bit of stress around that, but...
Yeah. And a well-matched, by the opposite of that would be that the client is just the right-sized company in a sector that's relevant, with a goal that's the sort of thing that we get behind, like a numerical, like something that's going to have some commercial impact. And then you're on a journey and it's just fulfilling. It's
if they're succeeding, and and the work that they're doing and the work that we're doing means the two together the benefit of us together is far exceeds just them working on their own or just us doing the work for them. That 2 and 2 is 5 idea.
Yeah.
And it's very satisfying because they're succeeding and they're on a journey and we're supporting them with it, and it feels very collaborative and it does give a sense of satisfaction.
Yeah. And the point of these longer conversations is that we're not just looking at work and sort of the details that we've just discussed there on client agency relationship and so on, but outside of work we've all got this balance, haven't we? Or we hope we have.
We should have.
We should have. Yeah, and I think it's something we're quite big on. But what's the other jigsaw pieces in your
Outside of work?
Yeah, the personal picture. Well, what might we not know about what you get up to?
I think there's a creative thread with me in certain geeky things that I like, you know. But I think most people will be aware that I'm pretty happy when I've got some spanners and a box of rags and a bit of polish messing around with an old car. I find that quite therapeutic.
Right.
That's a good day. Or perhaps exploring on my bike.
Yeah.
You know, I live in a village and I sort of enjoy, the lanes and walks around there as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely happy, lying under a car, messing about with some spanners.
Yeah. Which, funny enough, I remember you said this a couple of years ago. I was quizzing you, like, what is it you get out of the, tampering with these old cars and what have you. But I did a job last year. I don't do it so much, but I decided to restore my old garden furniture.
Mm.
And I was like, oh God, am I really going to take this job on? But it was so rewarding as a sort of mindful task. My thoughts could wander, and I put a podcast on for a bit and some music on for a bit and took a break, and it lasted a few days, and I could see the thing getting better and better. And I thought, I get it.
I think that's
the
it.
First time I've ever got it.
It's that mindfulness piece, and sometimes it's just the joy of a repetitive task, if perhaps there is a podcast or the radio on. But yeah, and also the satisfaction of an outcome as well.
Yeah.
If I set my stall out and I'm going to do a job on the car, and there's usually an outcome and some satisfaction with it. But no, it does clear my head of
stresses and
the stresses of life. Yeah.
Yeah, lovely.